Now here by Pleasantville Road on Harford County side. Little Gunpowder Falls below the bridge up there. You're all about to get some Ma and Pa history. This path bearing off to the east was once known as the Eyes. Back in the 70s, the rumor had it that if you walked on that path during the night, there'd be a pair of eyeballs following you along. Hence the name. But to check out the Ma and Pa, we had to cross to the Baltimore County side of the line. And Little Gunpowder Falls is the county line. I have shots of this bridge, and it was just a great bridge. That's Grate, not EAT. And Little Gunpowder Falls, looking east. Interesting rock cut there. I have shots of that from the 70s as well. Looking north of Pleasantville. I used to hang out here back in the 70s as well. Here's how it looked back then. Well, as close as I can get it anyway. But over here to the east, our path which leads us to the Ma and Pa. Got a small stream to ford here, whatever that term might be. Oh, a biker. I'm a mountain biker too, but this path is a bit too mountainous. And we're not even in the mountains. Now finally arriving at the former Ma and Pa right-of-way. We'll head east that direction as far as Little Gunpowder Crossing. We have a somewhat deep cut here, as I'm sure is obvious. Can you imagine how loud those trains would have been as they steamed through here? Must have been some racket. Up here the cut ends, and we're above on a high fill, as you'll see. Above the gunpowder, that is. Little Gunpowder. And now we're on that high fill. Down there through the trees, some places, the Little Gunpowder Falls. But out of view because of the leaves. But here's the high fill that this line is now on. It's a very high fill at this point. That's a semi-steep drop going down there. Also still some leftover gravel, believe it or not, from the 1950s when this line last ran. Another interesting thing about walking this part of the right-of-way is that one gets to see where the original narrow gauge line used to crisscross. One such spot is here just before this next deep cut. The standard gauge line ran through that cut straight ahead, but prior to that the narrow gauge line would have bypassed the hill that the cut cuts through and run that way, around the hill instead of through it. I guess they were lazy back then, or cheap. I guess one can walk either way. But this time we'll take the narrow gauge cut. The narrow gauge around the cut, whatever. The original line. Back when it was still called Baltimore and Lehigh. Pre-Ma and Pa. The cut over there as this original narrow gauge line curls around the hill it's cut through. For lack of a better way to explain it. In fact, the narrow gauge cut, cutting back and forth across the standard gauge line, looks almost like a sine wave. Those of you who have oscilloscopes know what I'm talking about. If you have an oscilloscope. But up here we rejoin the main line, so to speak, coming out of the cut. The cut being over that direction. That's quite a cut. Looking back west through the cut, with some downed trees. We just came out of here, out of the narrow gauge right of way. And now continuing on, where both lines are now one. But again, more high fill here, with part of Little Gunpowder almost visible down there. Right down there. A lot of deep cutting and high filling on the Ma and Pa. Got somewhat of a straightaway here, though on the Ma and Pa, straightaways were few and far between. But if the latter day Ma and Pa was considered curvy, can you imagine how it would have been back in the narrow gauge days? Curvier. Every now and then one sees spots where the narrow gauge deviated just a little bit. Like right here, went just a little bit to the right. Ever so slight to the right. Then back again. Unlike the big deviation back at that last cut. As I said, can you imagine how the Ma and Pa would have been before the standard gauge days? Curvier. Yeah, I just said that before. Got a slight curve up ahead. One of the many that Ma and Pa had. I believe the total curve count was 476. So this curve here, and 475 more. Count them. Go ahead, count them. The hiking trail bears down this direction because it bypasses the site of an old trestle right up here. We'll go see if any trestle bits are still visible. Now at the site of the trestle, I should have jumped from there across to the far side over there someplace, but now one can't tell where. But thanks to that sign, if I see any deer, I can't give them both barrels. I'll just give them just one barrel. Now back at our bypass trail, which we'll check out. And over there, where the trestle abutment would have been, I was just standing up there, shooting towards the left, across the ravine. And again, another stream to jump across. But I can make the jump. After all, I'm the bullfrog. Gotta love me. Another babbling brook. back at you. And there's where the abutment would have been, on the opposite side of the ravine. And up here we rejoin the right of way, somewhere up there. And here it is, trestle site over there, and the rest of the Bonpas proceeding east over here through one more deep cut. As I said, these cuts must have been very noisy when trains chugged through here. One more downed tree at the end of the cut, but up ahead, the site of the one-time Little Gunpowder Trestle. And here it is, all grown over. Little Gunpowder itself, again, right down there, but barely visible. In fact, back in the 1890s, they had a bad derailment on that trestle. You can imagine what happened. There's part of a stone abutment still left there, actually. And a wooden trestle would have crossed Little Gunpowder. That away somewhere. I'll do another video where we continue across the Gunpowder the other way.